Hello everybody, this is Dr. B. Today, just want to talk about estrogen, the good, the bad, and not so pretty of estrogen. Estrogen is an amazing hormone. It does a lot of good things for the body. Let's start off with what people say is like the not so pretty. Not so pretty is estrogen got a bad rap, and some of the reasons are just part of the learning curve of humankind is that we start off estrogen primarily with birth control or oral contraceptives was one of the big reasons. And also too, the hormone therapies we use were not bioidentical or similar to what our bodies are used to. Now let's get into why that is a case that it gave it like a bad image. Number one is that estrogen in our body naturally goes through our liver. When it does that, it creates proteins. One of the proteins is clotting factors that help you clot. The idea of this is when you're pregnant, your estrogen goes up and increases clotting factors so that way you don't hemorrhage when you deliver and have a baby. That's a good thing. Why did it get a bad rap? Is because with birth control is ethinyl estradiol. Ethinyl estradiol is much more potent in the body. It lasts longer, takes longer for the liver to metabolize. In doing so, it also increases the proteins that the liver makes. These proteins are clotting factors. So women that are at increased risk of blood clots, typically women that have things such as factor V, or smoke, or overweight, have a higher risk of blood clots. And by adding estrogen, especially estrogen that lasts a long time, you increase significantly clotting factors, and therefore you increase risk of clots, heart attack, stroke, which aren't good things. Well, we've learned since then, and so when you look at estrogen that we use typically in perimenopausal or menopausal, we use more bioidentical, and they're starting to look at estrogens for birth control, but they're still predominantly ethinyl estradiol because they last a long time, which helps when you want to regulate periods and not have it bleeding between your cycle, and that's a good thing. But you do have that risk of clotting, especially in the oral birth control. Now, when you look at hormone therapy or therapies like in perimenopausal, menopausal period, those estrogens are more bioidentical, similar to what our body makes, so therefore have a similar effect. Therefore, do not last as long and metabolize faster. Therefore, have a lower risk of blood clots, especially when you go through the skin, like a transdermal patch, a cream of those nature. The reason is because most of that bypass the liver, therefore you don't get the liver's increasing production of proteins, clotting factors. The other area this is important to realize is when you look at the estrogen's effect on testosterone. Why is that important? Because when estrogen stimulates the liver to make a protein called sex hormone binding globulin, estrogen that stimulates the liver increases this. The increase in sex hormone binding globulin bind up testosterone. This bound up testosterone then only leaves a certain amount free. The free testosterone is what's active in our body. The reason this is important is because the less free testosterone, the free testosterone effects you have. The good side of this is that with hormonal acne, it helps improve your acne by decreasing your testosterone, predominantly dihydrotestosterone. So by lowering the testosterone levels helps. The not so pretty is that when you bring down testosterone, you tend to bring down a person's sex drive, and therefore they don't like the side effects of that. The other downside is that it does have effect on skin health because decreasing testosterone decreases the good healthy oils for our skin and also decreases hair growth and muscle mass. What happens when you decrease muscle mass? You decrease your metabolism and your strength. So these are some effects. It also, testosterone, estrogen, have effect on bone. Well, ethinyl estradiol and birth control, which is potent, will help build bone. Decrease in testosterone kind of has the opposite effect, so it's kind of a kind of balancing act, I guess you'd say. Now, we always say balancing hormones, but really it's truly is kind of complementing for them to work together because your hormones should vary throughout the day. The other bad side is people always worry about, cancer. Predominantly, people are always concerned about breast cancer. If you do a bioidentical hormone of estrogen, which regulates cell production, growth, and death, kind of like an on-off switch of cell growth. If you take a bioidentical and you started in perimenopause or shortly into menopause, you actually decrease breast cancer rate, especially if matched with a natural progesterone. If estrogen alone decreases it, we know, and with it, the studies show more that if you use it with a natural progesterone, you do not increase the risk. So no, it does not cause breast cancer, and it may be preventative. So there are definite plus and minus. Now let's get into birth control, because this is where a lot of the kind of not so pretty or the ugly side of estrogens come out. Birth control started with, is made predominantly with estradiol. Like we spoke about, that has a potent effect on the liver. It does increase the proteins of clotting factors. Therefore, if you're 35 or older and you smoke, you don't want to take oral birth control. If you also have a history of blood clots, you don't want oral estrogen and birth control. It's better to use things like IUDs and such. The other negative thing is, and a lot of people don't think about this, when women take oral birth control, a few things also happen. Is one thing happens, some women develop a painful intercourse. That's because estrogen binds up that testosterone so well in birth control form, not hormone therapy, but birth control, the ethinyl estradiol, that it significantly drops your testosterone, decreases sex drive, but it also decreases testosterone effect. And one of the areas in the body is the vestibule, which is at the opening of the vagina, becomes very thin and atrophic and makes painful intercourse. Therefore, it has a negative effect, and the only way to kind of reverse this is to stop the birth control. So if you want to prevent it, use other forms other than combination, meaning estrogen and progestin birth control. Now, the other thing is too, is that interestingly, estrogen, ethinyl estradiol, and progestin in birth control, they did a study that I find interesting, is that they took women and showed that women that are on birth control choose, now we're talking heterosexual females, they chose men that were less masculine or less aggressive than women that were on birth. The women on birth control chose men that were less aggressive. We got to get that straight. Than women that weren't. And just an interesting thought. Yeah, it just shows that estrogen's effect on the brain. It has significant benefit, but then it's like anything else. You can push it too far, and it has negative impact on clotting, sex drive, muscle mass, brain function. So there are a give and take with it. But in the end, especially estrogen that we use for perimenopause and menopausal is wonderful for the body. And estrogen in birth control works well when paired with what the woman wants, as far as acne regulation, as far as cycle regulation, as far as overall health. But you have to see, okay, what are the things you want? So that's what, when you go to your physician, you say, hey, I'm looking for estrogen for birth control, or I'm looking for estrogen for hormone therapy. Kind of tell them, hey, this is what matters to me. This is what I want to improve. This is what I want to avoid. I hope that gives you some idea. If you have any questions, we're happy to talk to you and kind of walk you through things. Have a good day. Take care.